Hey everyone, welcome to Open Books with Alanna and Erin, two female leaders modernizing the accounting and the leadership spaces. Today we're doing something a little bit different from our normal programming. If you're in the accounting space, you most likely know about what was previously called QuickBooks Connect. Now it's called Intuit Connect. Alanna and I are speaking.
Yay!
So we wanted to kind of tie in a little bit of the podcast with our topic, kind of connected a little bit to servant leadership. Last year we did a session called Policies, Processes, and Procedures, the building blocks of success for your team and your clients.
Yeah.
This year we're kind of branching off of that a bit, doing the same thing, but more in a workshop style where we're actually going to be writing policies with people that are there, doing some whiteboarding and brainstorming. And I think our topic that we're speaking on can really lend itself well to servant leadership. So we're going to do this in a little bit of a different style. I'm kind of going to interview Alanna here and we'll hop right in. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. How do you think having policies and procedures lends itself to servant leadership?
Well, we've talked about in our previous episodes, some of them, about how servant leadership really needs a level of accountability, kind of as like the baseline. So then you can, I would say, like, provides then flexibility like above that, right? For how you work with each team member and train them in a way that fits that team member best. And so I think the policies, procedures, those provide that foundational understanding for everyone and puts everyone kind of on that same page, allows you to fall back to that for accountability, and is a very clear picture for the team members. From there, then you're able to really specialize with each team member in whatever way best suits them. But I just think those policies and procedures really give you the backbone to then be able to extend yourself into servant leadership is what I would say.
Yeah.
What do you think?
A lot of the same. I do think there are, when you're talking about writing policies, there are two different kinds, right? You can have the technical, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Technically, this is how we deliver things to clients, all of that. This is how we communicate with clients. And then you can have the policies that are more of an employee handbook style policy. And I think those ones can really provide that foundation, like you said, for the employee's interaction with all of the rest of the team, with you as a leader. I'll have an example in a little bit of how I've used a policy and how it really helped our team. But having something for them to fall back on, having that reliable, this is what we do. This is how we're doing it. If there is an outlier, we can have the conversation. For those of you still billing by the hour or maybe value billing, it really helps them identify out of scope stuff. But really, it gives them something to fall back on. It's their like trampoline while they're tightrope walking. Really is that safety net that they can go back and reference. That foundation and that trust that we're going to uphold the policies that we've written is really, I think, part of being a servant leader.
And I think it also helps to provide those boundaries for the firm, I would say, right? Which is really important. We talk a lot about boundaries as people and as team members, but the firm also has to put in boundaries of we are extending this trust and supporting you, but this is where our boundary is, and this is where we call, that you're done, or, where we draw the line. So I think it just provides boundaries for everyone and provides that very clear picture for everyone so they know how to operate to the best of their ability.
Hopping right off of that into like having what was a policy that we implemented that had an impact on our team.
Tell me.
Was one, and we've talked about this before. We did one where we set up parameters for what constitutes a write-up. Because write-ups, performance improvement plans, anything like that are such a sticky subject. And when there's a mistake, employees are always like, well, am I going to get written up for this? Am I going to get fired for this? Like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And so we set up parameters like these are the things that will require a write-up. You have this many write-ups on this many things, then there's a termination.
Yeah.
We'll have the conversation first, of course, and like we're always going to talk to the person. But having that set there removed a lot of the anxiety from them. Like, okay, a mistake has happened.
Yeah.
They hopefully aren't running wild in their
Yeah.
brain. They're like, okay, I know what constitutes a write-up.
Yep.
Is this that or is it not? Then they can come in prepared for any conversation. It just takes that worry and that anxiety away,
Yeah.
ideally.
Yep.
I do remember having this conversation with another firm leader, and they were like, well, why? Why do I need to worry about that? And I'm like, well, I think with a lot of our team being millennials, Gen Zs, we're imposter syndrome people.
Yeah.
We're overthinkers, which we'll have an episode on.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to let our brains run amok.
Yep.
And having something like that can reduce stress in an already incredibly stressful world.
Yeah.
How can that not be good?
Yeah.
There are always going to be outlying situations that don't necessarily fit in our nicely defined boundaries, but
Yep.
that was one of them that really worked for us.
Well, and I remember when you had told me about this a little while ago, and you had also commented on it gives the team member, they know they're going to have a chance to talk with you about it, which really stuck with me because it was like, yeah, when something does happen, that team member does want to be able to explain themselves.
Yeah.
And we have, meetings after something happened, after action reviews and that sort of thing. But the team member can count on they're going to talk to you about this specific situation and be heard.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just a really interesting, just something I've been thinking about recently.
Well, I definitely remember earlier in my career, something would happen.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who do I talk to, especially in a large firm where there's multiple partners, managers, a whole variety of levels of management. It's like, okay, who do I talk to about this? I want to explain where I was coming from, or I want to acknowledge that, I messed up.
Yeah.
But that, like, I don't know. It's such a panic. But knowing that you have the chance to talk, I hadn't really thought about that, but it's really good reminder of giving people the space to talk is so important.
Totally. Yep, it is.
So kind of going back to our policies and procedures, what do you consider one of the most important things when creating policies and procedures?
For me, what I consider one of the most important is oftentimes, I will be honest, something I overlook at times because I get very narrow focused. But it's, what are you trying to achieve with the policy procedure?
Yeah.
What is your end game? What is your goal? And so, a situation happens and you're like, we need a policy to stop this from happening. So then you start the groundwork and, it becomes a process to create the policy and all of this, right? And you can often find yourselves at the end, you've just created a policy or a procedure and you start to walk through it and it's like, well, wait a minute. What was I solving again?
Right.
And so I think often that can be forgotten. What I've started to do when I have to define a new one or rework what we've got going on, I actually state the goal at the top of the document and then I work through the rest of it and I just keep reminding myself, am I achieving that goal? Am I achieving the outcome that we're trying to either create or work away from, right? So just having that written connection to what I'm trying to achieve, that's really helped me become more efficient in my process of creating the policies and procedures.
Totally. I also do the background at the top. This is why we're creating it, and this is what we want it to do. It's so important. You can get caught in the weeds so easily when you're creating it. And
It's
But yeah,
huge. Yeah.
I would say it's going to sound counterintuitive
Okay.
for policies, but
Yeah.
flexibility.
Oh.
So I believe your policies, processes, procedures should be live documents
Sure.
because tech changes.
Yep.
Your team changes. Legal things in all the different
Yes.
states change.
Yep.
So you have to have a level of flexibility, as well as like a like scaffolding of support.
Yeah.
So you need your support, your foundation, all of that, but you do need to be able to move, like the buildings in Japan when there's earthquakes. So you should be, it's not a one and done
Yep,
thing.
totally.
You have to keep going back, revisiting them, updating them. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They create it once and they never do it again. They
Yep.
never look back at it. It's like, no, this is a process, a never ending process,
Yes.
which is daunting,
Yep.
but should be done.
Totally. And then also communicating that to team members.
Oh, yes.
That this is a living document. And because it can be, I think team members might think, okay, this is the policy. It will never change.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, tech does change. You know, we might have a business need to change it.
Right.
And so I think just being honest with team members that it is a living document, but also that your first take at something isn't going to be the home run.
Right.
Right. So you might have to revisit it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. How many I've written that have not been home runs.
Yep. No.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about that.
No, that's okay.
So hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight into what we're going to be talking about in our session. We'd love if you could join us. And we will be back to our regular programming in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.